Hi, everyone. Welcome to Rutgers at the Voice of College Football. We have a great show planned for you tonight. I'm here with my fantastic co-host, Gabriel Pickup. Gabe, glad to see you as always.
All right,
Before we
guys.
start our show, though, I just want to explain why my picture is not on the screen. Apparently, there was some mix-up with my computer and some technical glitch. So for tonight's show, you won't see my face, but you will be seeing Ethan Calicamanus' face, and that's not a bad thing. So if you like this show, hit that like and subscribe button, and please call in, give us your comments. We'd love to hear your feedback and engage in conversation with you. So, Gabe, I want to start off tonight by really talking about, the pro day. We had Rutgers seniors out there before some NFL scouts, and who knows, we might see some of these star players get drafted into the NFL and be playing on Sundays. But before we get to that, I'm going to ask a question, just plain devil's advocate. I'm an attorney, so we do that all the time.
Yep.
Gabe, why should anyone in the NFL want to draft a player from Rutgers?
Well, because they know what it's like to go through these programs and see the development. I mean, you look back to even 3 years ago, and some of these guys during their pro day, they did play on this team 3 years ago, and we were a crap show compared to today. At least now we have hope for the future, thanks in large part to these guys. So hopefully people will look past the school and look more so at the production and what they can bring to their teams. And I believe some of these guys that we'll be able to talk about in a little bit, some of them are going to make it, some of them not so much. But let's get into it.
Yeah, well, let's get into it. But before we do that, I just got a text message from someone who watches Rutgers, the voice of college football, saying that they like the picture of Ethan better than they like seeing me on the screen. Now, let me tell you something. I'm an acquired taste, so give it some time. But when I think of people playing in the NFL, let's talk about maybe running backs, defensive backs, wide receivers. I want someone who runs a 4.4. I want someone who's long and lean, and I want someone who's tough. So I'm a little bit skeptical if these Rutgers players are going to measure up. So why don't we start out by talking about the obvious name in the room, one of Rutgers' greatest stars, Don Bosco graduate, Kyle Monangai. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so you said you wanted someone with a 4.4. He runs a 4.6, which is a little slow for a running back, especially when you get into some of these linemen that are running almost 4.6s themselves. But you look at Monangai, right? Running back, 5'9", 209, which it's a little on the thick side for a running back, but that's okay. He's sneaky athletic, uses his body really well. He went to Don Bosco Prep High School. Too many awards to even name while at Rutgers. First team All Big Ten, team captain, just to name a few. One of the best running backs in program history, not named Ray Rice. He was a Scarlet Knight all 4 years of eligibility. And last year he had 1,279 yards, 5 per carry, 14 total touchdowns. And the strength that he has that I think scouts are really going to love, 0 fumbles. Now you look at some of these other guys, they'll get 4 or 5 in a season. He has 0. So we talked about the 4.6 40, and a lot of pages were saying Blake Corum similarities, which I can see because Blake Corum's a little bit on the smaller side, but sneaky athletics, kind of like Monangai. So some of the strengths listed on Monangai's scouting report, according to a Steelers website, actually, because that is one team that could draft him, is contact balance, very good at staying on his feet off of a slight push when the guy doesn't really tackle him, very shifty, sneaky good lateral quickness, and his leg drive speed when getting tackled, pushing through when there's guys on the O-line, guys on the D-line. He's very good at staying on his feet. Now, some of the weaknesses, right? Long speed. When he gets out into the open field, he's not very good at running down to the end zone. Some guys are going to catch up to him, and it's unfortunate, but not every running back is perfectly well-rounded. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time for these guys to get developed. And another weakness he has, inconsistent run line discipline. Sometimes he'll give up on the play a little too early, and he'll either run up the middle or he'll try to run outside, and he won't get as many yards as if he stayed within the zone. He has pass protecting issues, but I mean, that's not really a running back's job. That's just kind of a plus. if they have it. He's projected day 3. I kind of see him as like a Philip Lindsay-esque steal for day 3. That's sort of my analysis.
Now, I think that's a great analysis, and you make some really great points. And for those of you who are watching, we want you to call in and give us your comments about what you think about this, because the draft is coming up in less than 50 days. And really, some of the landing spots for these players is uncertain. So when you talk about Kyle Monangai, I'm a Bergen Catholic graduate. Don Bosco Prep was our rival. I know all too well how outstanding he was at Don Bosco. So what's the tale of the tape on Kyle Monangai? Well, we know he's a great player with a lot of grit, speed, and did a fantastic job for Rutgers. He's 5'8", 211 pounds. His hand is 9 inches long. Now, I don't know how that happens because I measured my hand and it was 6 inches. I don't know where these hands get so big, but regardless, his prospect grade is 6.0. And according to the Combine Scout, 6.0 means that a person has the traits or talent to be an average or above average backup. So on his production score at the Combine, he ranked 21st. Athleticism, he ranked 24th. His total score was 22nd. His 40-yard dash was 4.6 seconds. 10-yard split was 1.54 seconds. Now, the vertical jump is impressive, 34.5 inches. When I saw that, I tried to do a vertical jump, and I measured it 14 inches. So that is something that's impressive. Broad jump, 9 feet, 9 inches.
You think we're going to see any reverse hurdles over the Jacksonville Jaguars?
We could. I mean, who knows? But, I think what we're looking at is a guy who has great leadership capabilities. He's compact. He's muscular. His quickness is very impressive. He makes elusive cuts in the open field. He does have a low center of gravity that allows him to make those kind of lateral cuts, and he can absorb contact and stay intact. So it's difficult for defenses to bring him down. But I think some of the weaknesses, like you alluded to, is he drags his back foot on the turf to gather weight before his cut. He also isn't able to drift and read for as long as he should, and he has short strides that make it harder for him to run away after stopping his feet. And ultimately, I think it's the lack of size and technique to pick up the blitz when he's blocking. So my contrarian view, as much as I hate to say it, I love you, Kyle Monangai. I don't see someone 5'8", running a 4'6", weighing 211 pounds playing in the NFL. I think Monangai is one of the best in Rutgers history, but I think his career ends there.
So when it comes to the weight, right, I mean, that can fluctuate very quickly. The height, not so much. The shiftiness, a little bit. But when it comes to weight, right, that can come and go in an instant. We know he's disciplined, right? He looked amazing within our system. And we know that he's a team player. He's a leader. So I have a feeling that you're wrong on this. And I'm not going to be saying this for everybody because only so many players get drafted. Only so many make the NFL. And the NFL is light years ahead of college talent, just like college to high school. But when it comes to him, I believe that while he doesn't pass the eye test, so to say, of what a running back should look like when it comes to their physique, what he does have is the heart. And, I believe it was Nate Robinson who coined the phrase heart over height. And, he's not 6'1", and he's not Marshawn Lynch, and he's also not an Austin Eckler, but he's somewhere in the middle of that, and he likes to go both ways when it comes to his running back talents. So I do believe that he'll be a successful running back in the NFL, maybe a solid 5-7 year career out of it.
Well, I love it when we disagree because that's what we want on this show. We want different perspectives. Maybe I'm wrong and maybe you're right, but here's what I'll say. Reggie Bush ran a 4.3. He was explosive at USC. He was not in the NFL. And the reason is because linebackers also run 4.6 40s. And I don't think that Monangai is going to be able to either overpower, outrun, or outslant any of the speedy linebackers in the NFL who are not only as fast, but they are, bigger. So what I would say is I admire Kyle Monangai. I think that what he did for Rutgers and the heart that he showed is incredible. But my conclusion is, Monangai, you're finished. You're going to have a great career in whatever you do, and you are a great man. But I do not see a career in the NFL, and I see him being an undrafted free agent who will be cut from the practice squad in August.
See, it's funny you say that because I feel like he's projected to get drafted. Like, it's not even a reach or a bias thing to for him to say that he'll get drafted. And, I'm not saying this guy will be a superstar and or anything like that, but you were talking about his speed. He doesn't rely on his speed, though. That's the thing. He relies on his physicality. And obviously, linebackers in the NFL are way more physical than in college. But some of the guys that he'll be facing in the NFL, when he at least gets to the practice squad of a team, are guys that he has faced in college. And, when it comes to these running backs, right, they're going to be able to squat 400, deadlift 300, 400, whatever it may be, and get stronger and focus more on their strength to be able to overpower these guys, i.e. Saquon, i.e. Melvin Gordon. Some of these guys, obviously, those are extreme examples. But when you're small and you rely on your physicality, you have to work way harder. And I believe that he is capable of doing so.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make great points. And like I said, you might be right. But my feeling is that your emotions and your desire for him to be successful are outweighing just an objective analysis of the facts. Now, that may sound mean, but as an attorney, I can tell you people say many, many more mean things to me every day. And I also know that I'm wrong more than I'm right. So maybe Gabe is right here. But when I see someone like Christian McCaffrey, 5'11" out of Stanford, 4.48 40-yard dash, great football IQ. That's the kind of person that I could project becoming elite in the NFL. And when you think about it, every year in the NFL, how many really good running backs are there? We really don't talk that much about how many good running backs there are. We talk about how many great quarterbacks and receivers we have, but we don't talk about how many great running backs there are because it's so hard to be a successful running back. I'm 5'8". I think that his height and his 4.6 40 makes it implausible for him to be able to succeed in the NFL. But when I say that, I think he's an amazing guy. And I know he has the heart, and that might lead him to get placed on an NFL team. And maybe he's a 4th or 5th round pick, and maybe he will have a 5 to 7 year career. But is he going to be a game changer for any team? I don't think so. I think the best hope for him is to be placed on a team with a great offensive line, with great balance on offense, where in certain situations he can have an impact. And I hope he does that because we're all rooting for him.
Absolutely. And he's not just an amazing guy. He's a Manung guy.
That's right. Absolutely. And let me tell you something, Kyle. If you don't make it in the NFL, nothing wrong with going to law school. Give me a call. Trust me, it'll be all right.
Use that as motivation. Get to the NFL.
Yes, we'll see. And I look forward to evaluating the players, not just who are, going into potentially the NFL this year, but those who are up and coming for 2025, that spring game. Looking forward to attending that and hope to see you there. And we'll see what the future of Rutgers looks like. Now, let's go to another player that I'm really high on. And I'm not sure if I'm right about this, Gabe. You know more about this than me. But let's talk about Dymere Miller. I mean, I was impressed with him this year. I think this guy's big. I think he's fast. And I think he's smart. And I think he can be placed on an NFL team, particularly in third down context where he could, really help a team. What do you think?
So I agree with you. I don't think his ceiling is Pro Bowl or star, but I think his ceiling to me is actually sort of like a Scotty Miller kind of guy, where he's somewhere between wide receiver 3 and wide receiver 4 on a really good team. Wide receiver 3 on a bad team, wide receiver 4 on a great team, but in the middle for a good team. So he's a wide receiver, 5'11", 184, out of Coatesville High School in Pennsylvania. 2023 Walter Payton Award finalist, 4 amazing years at Monmouth, 1 really solid year at Rutgers, 16 touchdowns between 2022 and 2023. He had 7 with us in 24. He had a career high 1,295 receiving yards in 2023. So this is where it gets a little dicey. His peak, right? He peaked at number 229 prospect, according to NFL MarkDraftDatabase.com in January 2025. But right now he ranks 405 as a prospect, which that would be undrafted. But 229, I believe, is, if I'm doing my math correctly, that might sneak in that late round 7. I can't. I'm not good at doing that division off the top of my head, but so you see this guy. He's got the peak of being drafted. Currently, he's not projected, so he should get some scouts to at least pick him up as an undrafted free agent. With that chance, the only thing is, I mean, he had his first shot at like being on a real football team. No offense to Monmouth last year, and he had a great year, but it wasn't up to the same standard. There was a drop off, so it's a little dicey when it comes to his production. The 4 years at Monmouth, like how do you even equate that to like translating into something like the NFL?
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you what I think about this. And this is the weird thing about receivers. One thing that's always amazed me about receivers is that sometimes receivers that you wouldn't expect to be talented in the NFL come out of nowhere and become stars. And, you said you were a New York Jets fan. When you said that, I wasn't sure if you were joking or not. But if you're serious.
They are a joke.
Oh, okay. Well, let's assume you are a Jets fan. I'm a Giants fan, so we're pretty much worse off than you guys are. Now, when I think of Wayne Corbett, here's what I see. I see someone who's 5'10", 188 pounds, who ran a 4.53 40.
Yeah.
When I see Demir Miller, I see 5'11", 184 pounds, running a 4.36 40. So there's a limitation to just looking at the tail of the tape, the height, the weight, the speed. And in this case, he has the speed, may not have the height, but I think what makes great receivers is intelligence and intangibles, the ability to read a defense, to see the holes, and to be thrown open. And I think we're going a little bit too low on Demir Miller. I mean, remember, these NFL GMs are not the brightest people in the bunch. They drafted Anthony Richardson in the first round, for God's sake. Okay? They're often seduced by the hard numbers rather than looking at the intangibles. I think Demir Miller has them. I think he's going to be a steal for a team for a low price, and he's going to have a big impact.
So I would have been fooled with Anthony Richardson too. I thought he was the best quarterback in that class. But
he's a bum.
When it comes to Miller, I mean, I'm just going off of the analytics, and that seems to be what's more relied on nowadays than ever because, with the advancements in AI and data, you see sort of this correlation to players, unfortunately, just being numbers to a GM, to an owner. And when you go based on the numbers, he's not getting drafted. But when you go off the heart, the scouts see heart when they show up to a place that they don't see when they're looking at a guy's numbers. Someone will give this guy a practice squad contract. Now, will he make a roster? I don't know. But I do see the potential that he could be sort of a player that's an impact on a good team if he's given a chance. It just sort of seems like, he plateaued a little bit last season. And he was a senior, a fifth-year senior, so he really should have been, competing for, Big Ten receiver of the year type of player. But that's just my opinion.
Well, here's the thing, and I could be wrong, but we often think that because someone is an NFL GM, they must be smart. They must be experts. They must know things that we don't know. It's absolutely not true. Having worked with people who are in similar positions, I can tell you it's shocking to see what little they often do know. And that's why they rely on analytics, because they're incapable of actually assessing a human being. Analytics is one of those things that's really ruined managing in professional baseball. We look at a pitcher in the 7th inning who's throwing 98 miles an hour and strikes out the first 2 batters. Say he's a left-handed pitcher. But then the manager takes him out when the next batter comes up because it's lefty on lefty, and the percentage of getting him out is only 68%. Well, if you look at the damn game, the guy's throwing 98 miles an hour. Let them play. Analytics is actually a substitute for analysis. And analysis is what separates the great GMs from the average GMs. So if you're looking at it purely on an analytics basis, sure, you might be right. If you're looking at it on a more comprehensive basis, I think his future is brighter than people may think.
Unfortunately, based on the analytics, he's not getting drafted. That's what I'm saying. It's after the draft as an undrafted free agent, will he get a practice squad shot? And I think the answer is yes.
Gabe, how many times have you seen in the NFL some moron head coach who's trailing another team go for 2 after a touchdown because the numbers on the little sheet say that he should?
And it hardly works out too. Like, I've noticed that. I mean, it might just be like a recency bias thing, but when people are going for 2 when they're down 1, it doesn't work out that much. And you know why? It's because they get the freaking jitters.
Yes, and what they don't realize about analytics is the same thing what people don't realize about economics. It's all speculative. It's all based on projections rather than certainty. For Christ's sake, if you score a touchdown and you're down, don't go for the 2-point conversion because you think, well, if they don't score and we get a field goal, they come back, they get a touchdown, then we get a touchdown and kicks the extra point, we'll win by 1. It's based on too many contingencies. Take all the points you can get. And the fact that the 2-point conversion has shown to be a failure in the NFL based on analytics shows the broader problem with analytics itself.
And you know why they go for it at the end of the game? It's because everyone wants to go home and they don't want to go to overtime. They just want to either win or lose and get the hell out of the stadium.
Well, do you know why I think that coaches in baseball and professional football really depend on analytics? My theory is this. They want to cover their ass. They want to say, I did what everyone said I should do, rather than doing what I know I would have done or, otherwise would have been the right decision. Joe Girardi on the New York Yankees was a perfect example of that. You got somebody out of the bullpen who's striking everybody out, throwing 99 miles an hour, and he takes him out because the hitter he's facing historically has batted 360 off of him. Well, that's not the way probabilities work. Every event is independent in and of itself. Yep. So I think what they're doing with analytics is covering their asses and saying, I'm not going to get fired because you guys told me to do this, and therefore I did it.
Yeah.
And I'm good.
It's funny because obviously now we rely on analytics more, but you look at Joe Girardi, and not to get too off topic, we still have some good content going ahead with the Rutgers channel here. But when you look at Joe Girardi, he manages the Phillies, and they're like 8 games under 500, and he gets tossed the can, and then they bring in Rob Thompson, who's more instinctive, and then they make the World Series. So it's not always about analytics. You're right. But unfortunately, when it comes to this draft, you have to pass the analytics to get drafted. And then after that, heart over height or, heart over skills, whatever you may be. That's where it kind of determines the placement. But in order to get drafted, you do have to pass the analytics.
No, I agree with you. And I think analytics has its place. I don't think we should throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I think it's become disproportionately influential. And certainly we don't want to get off topic, but I suspect some of you Rutgers fans out there are also Yankees or Mets fans. So once in a while, if we talk about that, I suspect we're talking about stuff that interests you. Now, okay, so let me make one last analogy. If you've ever seen Rocky IV, you had Drago. Drago was off the charts on the analytics, but Rocky beat him. And that, in a nutshell, is my point. So without further ado, any other Rutgers players you think we should be talking about in terms of the NFL?
Yeah, one last guy here. Well, there's actually a few, but one last guy for this week. Keontae Hamilton I wanted to bring up. Defensive lineman, 6'4", 304, out of Georgetown Prep High School in Maryland. All 4 seasons of NCAA eligibility, he played at Rutgers. As a D lineman, he had 35 tackles, 4 sacks, a forced fumble and fumble recovery. Now, 35 tackles for a D lineman is pretty impressive. And so he had 2022, 23, and 24. He was academic All Big Ten award honored. 2024, he was an honorable mention All Big Ten by Coaches and Media. So He ran a 4.95 40-yard dash, which, it could be worse for a D lineman. 9'2" broad jump, pretty impressive for a D lineman. He had a 29-inch vertical, and he had 29 reps on the bench press. That's a lot. So he carries his weight really well. That's one of his strengths. He's very explosive for a D lineman. He's definitely sort of run defense based more than pass rushing. He has a great spin move, though, when it comes to pass rushing, and he's very durable. He didn't have any injuries for us. So this guy, he's worth a shot. He has weaknesses. He can be shut out in the pass rush pretty easily. He's not very good at evading linemen, and he's strictly interior based. He doesn't go out to the D end. So he can't really slot over if you have injuries on your team. He's a projected undrafted free agent, but at his peak, he is a rotational player. And my comparison to him would be sort of a Derek Nottie.
Yeah. Again, you make some great points as always. When I was in high school as a freshman at Bergen Catholic, I was 5'8" and 145 pounds, and I ran as fast as I could, and I ran a 4.9 40. He is 6'4.5", 304 pounds, and runs a 4.95. That's very fast for a defensive lineman. And that kind of speed and size is something that could really help disrupt the quarterback on opposing offenses. And I think you're right to identify him as somebody who could, be an impact player in the NFL. But overall, is there anybody in particular who either went to the combine or was at Pro Day that you think has the best chance to represent Rutgers and succeed in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, there's one guy that I'll actually get into in a little bit, but I know you disagree with me on this, but I really think Manangai is that guy. Every fan loves him. He's the only one of these guys that's projected to be drafted, so he automatically has the best shot just by getting drafted. Because teams don't waste draft picks. They either trade them away or they get guys they think they can succeed with.
Sure.
People say like these 6th, 7th round picks are sometimes wastes. That's absolutely not the case in the NFL. The greatest football player of all time, unfortunately, because I'm a Jets fan, he was a 7th round pick overall, Tom Brady. And,
right.
You look, San Francisco 49ers, Mr. Unreliable is now their starting quarterback who took them to the Super Bowl. These picks are never a waste. So you get drafted, it means a team believes in you, and a team is going to believe in Kyle Manangai, whether that's a starter or a backup or 2 or 3 years of development, and then they try him out, and maybe he does work, maybe he doesn't. Who knows? But he's definitely the guy that automatically has the best shot.
All right. Well, I'm going to disagree with you in part. I think that he has the second best shot, but I think you make a really good argument for why he could be considered the best prospect. But you mentioned Tom Brady being drafted in, I think, the 7th round.
Yeah.
That proves my point that these GMs are morons. You know what they do? I'll tell you what they do. They sit in their big offices. They do very little all day except see how much their stocks have gone up. Yep. And then they get their assistants to bring them a piece of paper that says, these are the people you want to draft because these are the, statistics on their height, their weight, their 40 speed. They look in a very small box without looking outside the box to see who has the intangibles, the intelligence, and the drive. And Tom Brady being selected in the 7th round, go on to become perhaps the best quarterback in history is an example of that. I'm going to disagree with you on Kyle Manangai because I think there is one sleeper candidate for Rutgers that could become a star in the NFL.
I think I know who you're going to say, but go ahead.
His name is Holland Pierce.
It's not who I thought you were going to say.
Offensive tackle, 6'8", 341 pounds. Projected as someone who can develop into a starter, ranked 21st in athleticism at the combine, and considered a rare combination of size and strength, tremendously disciplined with above average hand placement, and his mass and his length can really challenge rushers who get too close to him. and he uses a trap technique with his outside hand that ultimately shuts down the edge. This guy isn't talked about enough. He should be. Holland, I'm on your side. You're going to the NFL. We'll see you on Sunday.
You're right. I mean, the O-line was really the strongest part of the team last year, and in very many previous years. You could say the same this year. So one guy I did want to bring up as an honorable mention, because everyone's talking about him post pro day, is Tyree Powell. Actually,
yeah.
That's who I thought you were going to say.
That was the person I was thinking about saying, but you're right on him. Go ahead.
Yeah, linebacker, 57 total tackles last year, 70 total in 2022. 32 solo, 25 assists, 2 pass deflections. He had 4 in 2022. No sacks last year, but 5 in his career. Forced fumble last year, 1 the year prior. And some of his measurements, he's 239. He runs a 4.69 40, which is impressive for a linebacker. And this guy, he's ranked. Let me see here. It says he's ranked 254. So that means he's projected to get drafted according to 247 Sports. So if it's sort of borderline where with 254 he could go anywhere from round 5 to undrafted. But
that's true.
Statistically, it is more likely that he gets drafted than he doesn't.
All right, so here, and you certainly might be right, and this is what really. This always raises a question in my mind. When you look at these prospects across the board, for the most part, they all are similar in size, relatively similar in speed, relatively similar in experience. So you got to wonder what separates them so that you get your elite players, your great players, and the players who don't make it. Because if they all have the tools, or at least the minimum requisite number of tools, what is it that makes some succeed and some not?
Yeah, that's a great question. One I don't know if I can answer outside of just the discipline and heart that I've talked about, because I've said on this show, analytics will get you to the draft board, but it's about your character that separates you, and that's why they do interviews. I mean, after analytics, that's the last thing it comes down to. One question I have is, you look at these guys and you're saying GMs are a bunch of morons. We could do their job, yada, yada. But, the highest draft prospect that we have is a 6th rounder in Monangai, 7th rounder in Powell. So when it comes to this next season, with us really losing at best a 6th round draft pick, we can't really get worse, right? I mean, on paper, we're going against tougher competition, but we're not losing the same amount of talent that these other bigger programs are having.
Right. All right. Well, yeah, you make good points. So let me ask you this. I said that most GMs are morons. Now, when I say that, I mean it in a hyperbolic, half-joking way, but there's an element of seriousness to it, and I'll tell you why. How many times have you sat at home watching the NFL draft and your team comes up to make a selection and everybody says, what the, what?
Yep.
I would bet $1 million that tomorrow, if you became the general manager of the New York Jets.
Lord, I do not want that job.
Well, you don't have a choice. you are selected and forced to be the general manager of the New York Jets for 1 season. I guarantee you would do no worse than, and perhaps better than, the current GM. What do they know more? What do they know that you don't?
Here's the problem with that, right? It's our owner that makes all the decisions, and his son. The GMs of the New York Jets hold no power anymore, right? They have these decisions that they can make, but they don't get to execute on them because their son doesn't like their prospects' Madden rating. So I don't know if it goes too much better.
And that kind of underscores exactly why these people are morons. I'll tell you what these owners do. They go out to the Hamptons in their beautiful mansions. They go on the beach. They look at a nice sunset. Very, very nice, real nice. And they say, I don't like this prospect. I just don't like him. I want to choose him because, I don't know, whatever arbitrary reason they choose. I mean, for Christ's sake, the Giants drafted Daniel Jones in the first round.
Yeah, Duke quarterback in the first round. This is not basketball. Shout out March Madness. I just made my bracket. I have Duke losing in the Final Four, but when it comes to football, they're not a program that develops high level talent, no matter what the position is.
No, Daniel Jones is going to be a partner in a prestigious finance company making millions of dollars. But that shows you what these. I mean, do you think on the New York Yankees that Hal Steinbrenner is some type of a genius or Brian Cashman, that they have the pulse on the intangibles that make great players? Of course they don't. They're lucky to be in the positions they are because they grew up in generational wealth, and that's what got them there. You would be a better GM right now. You should apply for the job.
Well, when it comes to baseball, it's all about just how much money do you want to spend. With football, there's a hard cap, a salary cap, and with college, there's sort of NIL caps that are being established still because NIL is so new. So I don't know. It would all come down to the finances, obviously.
Wait, hold on about this salary cap. You can go over the salary cap, can't you?
In football?
Yeah.
There's a dead cap, but you take it on the next year in salary.
Oh, I thought you can go over the salary cap. You just pay a penalty.
That's what the penalty is, I believe, unless I'm mistaken.
All right, well, guess what? These GMs are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. They can take the penalty if they want to win.
Yep, agreed.
Oh, they don't want to lose an extra $5 million. Well, you're worth $1 billion. What the hell is it going to matter if you want to have a winning team? These GMs are a disgrace. And I think that ultimately hurts the prospects from Rutgers. Because if they're going to go hard on the analytics, it's going to be difficult for anybody to get drafted or to make a team in a position to have an impact. And I think that's sad.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree. I think there's some more news to talk about, though, correct? We have one more guy we should go over, but he's not a player. He's the defensive coordinator, Rob Smith.
Yeah, I want to go over as many topics as you think are relevant, because I'm sensing 2025, unlike what I previously thought, could be a breakthrough year for Rutgers. So let's talk about the new defensive coordinator. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are it's great that we've promoted him because this is his third stint as Rutgers defensive coordinator, and he's worked with Schiano 5 times now. So he's nothing if not familiar with the system.
Reminds me of Billy Martin. He got fired 7 times, and then he died in a car crash. I mean, come on. Why is he leaving, coming back, leaving, coming back? Yeah. Smith, what's your problem?
He was an analyst for Penn State last year, a defensive analyst.
Well, at least he wasn't an offensive analyst, given that Drew Aller threw a horrible interception against Notre Dame. So I give him credit for that.
Yeah. So defensive coordinator for us, 2020 to 2021. Defensive coordinator from Minnesota, 2017 to 18. And he was a linebackers coach for Schiano on the Buccaneers, defensive coordinator for us, and along with secondary coach in 2012. And he was a special teams and linebackers coach for us in 2011. So he was the DC 2020-2021. Not very great years to be a defensive coordinator. But, he was also with Minnesota, and Minnesota, they're, in general, a little more established than we are. When you talk about the recent history. So
Minnesota, he was at Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
Now, was he with PJ Fleck?
Was PJ in 2020, 2021? That's
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. That's a good question.
I'm not certain either.
Sounds like this guy, Rob Smith, is a very promising candidate. Seems like he knows what he's doing. Third stint at Rutgers, worked with Schiano at Tampa Bay. So it sounds like this is a really good choice.
Yeah.
When I think about it, I think about, well, what scheme are you going to run on defense? And I've always been a fan of, and people might think this is crazy, I've always been a fan of a 4-4-3 defense. You got to have 4 down linemen. And
that is a little crazy.
Yeah, it is a little crazy. And you know what? For everyone watching, I don't care if it's crazy, because if you look at what most defenses are doing now, it ain't working. So what I like is the idea of 4 down linemen, 4 linebackers, 2 cornerbacks, and a 1 high safety. If the linebackers are fast, that's the catch. Yeah. What we need, Rob Smith, is for you to get those strong, speedy, and large front four to disrupt the quarterback. We can't be blitzing. We can't be, blitzing. We have to be able to get pressure with 4 so that we can drop enough people to take the pressure off of the secondary and force the quarterback into low percentage throws. That's my view.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. And the other defensive coordinator who's going to be more focused on the linebackers that we got is Zach Sparber from JMU.
Right.
So he's going to be the co-defensive coordinator. So if we were to run something like that 4-4-3, which I don't think there's any way we would. I mean, in idea, it sounds all, dandy, but I don't think anyone will actually execute it. But if there's, if he has 3 guys to work with or 4 guys to work with on that linebacker side, which it's looking like it's going to be more of a 3-4, he'll take a lot of the burden off of Rob Smith.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'll be honest with you. I don't think I've ever heard of a 4-4-3 defense except for me. And you know what? 4-4-3, yeah, it's 11 players on the field. And the reason, and maybe tonight on this show, I have actually invented a new defensive scheme that is going to help people. It's St. Patrick's Day, so crazy things happen. You never know. The reason I like a 4-4-3 scheme is this. If you have speedy linebackers who have high football IQs, you will absolutely always take away the middle of the field. And when you take away the middle of the field, the quarterbacks have to throw outside, and those are lower percentage throws. And if your corners are talented enough to play man, a 4-4-3 defense will shut down the run and the pass because the intermediate middle routes will not be available. And if the front 4 can get pressure, you have the prescription for a defense that will dominate.
Are you pitching your take here to the Shark Tank coming up?
I am absolutely pitching it, and I want to be interviewed about this because I don't want no one stealing my idea, and that means you, Bill Belichick.
Oh man, the day that one of the best football coaches ever steals your playbook. I mean, granted, he has a history, but that would
listen. There was a time when Bill Belichick was a nobody, and he came out of nowhere because he had an idea. I have an idea. Who knows?
I mean, yeah, that's fair.
Now, that makes me sound narcissistic and egotistical and like a jerk, but you know what? Life is too short to stay silent. Throw your ideas out there. If they fail, it's better than not saying anything at all. Bill Belichick, if you steal my ideas, I'll steal that 21-year-old girlfriend that you have.
Whew.
That's right. I'm on to you. I'm on to you, buddy.
Don't worry. I won't tell the missus.
Well, that was uncalled for.
But yeah, so they come to Rutgers, right? And I mean, Rob Smith, he's hopefully going to make this a little more than pedestrian, right, of a defense. Because last year, according to ESPN, here we were ranked 71st nationally in scoring defense. We were allowing 25.5 per game, which it's not atrocious, but it's really not ideal, especially when you start off so sound on defense and then you give up these big explosive games to an Illinois or in the Rate Bowl, number 95 in total defense. So, I mean, it's sort of like a low to, it's like a mid expectations, low risk, high reward kind of hire, or I shouldn't say low risk. It's like a mid risk, high reward.
Well, I think here, I think I kind of agree with you. Like, I think he's a solid choice, and the word solid is good, but at the same time, it's not spectacular. Here's where I think Rob Smith succeeds. He has to have the talent. And he has to have, defensive coordinators could only scheme up so much. They have to have the talent, and it's going to be incumbent on these transfers from James Madison, from South Florida, from UNLV, from Penn State, to really bring the kind of presence that is going to allow them to disrupt the quarterback, take away the middle passing game, play man on the defense, and really play smart. and avoid games like Illinois. So can that happen? Yes, I think it can happen because I think Rob Smith is good enough. And good enough is often enough. But you need the players. Like Woody Hayes said, you win with people. I mean, think about it, Gabe. Is it true that Bill Parcells, Nick Saban, and Bill Belichick are such phenomenal geniuses that they thought of schemes that were so exotic and so original that they took college football by storm? Or is it possible that Nick Saban had the best college recruits in the country, Bill Belichick had Tom Brady? Okay, That's my point. You don't need to be amazing to be a great coach. You need to have the people.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, good coaches are highlighted, but it's really just easiest jobs in the nations that get them there.
Yeah, look, I don't know if I'm 49 years old. You're much younger than me. I'm jealous of that. But in the 80s, I remember a team called the Chicago Bulls. They had Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, and they had Dennis Rodman. Now, if I was the coach of the Chicago Bulls during that era, they would have won the national champion. They would have won the NBA championship too. Like Phil Jackson was some genius. No, he wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. He developed the triangle offense, and that's sort of what took the league by storm because he did it with Kobe and Shaq too.
And
so he's done it in multiple systems. And when he started coaching the Lakers, Kobe was not a superstar. He was barely a sixth man.
So he developed a theoretical offense, just like Nick Saban developed an amazing defense on paper.
Yeah, but you're right. It took the execution of the players.
The execution. So I'm going to give them credit and say, yeah, Phil Jackson, you were a very good coach. But do I think that he's some groundbreaking genius? No. Bobby Knight at Indiana also was very original in his schemes, both for offense and defense. But he had the players. Yeah. And I would submit that if he didn't develop those schemes, he would have still won. And we put so much of a premium on coaches and blame the coaches for everything, when at the end of the day, it wasn't Greg Schiano who gave up that 4th and 8 pass with about 13 seconds left to Illinois. And I'm in a bad mood today because it's St. Patrick's Day. And you know what? I'm Italian, so I feel excluded from the
you're not really coming with the old Irish spirit here, huh?
I love the Irish, but I'm Italian, so I feel excluded. I went to an Irish bar before, and they told me to leave. I don't know what's going on over here.
You Italians have enough.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's true, I guess. Well, all right, fine. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. We love you all.
What you have in food, a lot of other cultures don't have in everything.
All people have to do is buy pasta and they'd be fine, but no, they just refuse. That's their fault.
Yeah, I mean, I'm half British, so we don't have a lot of seasoning or tastes when it comes to.
The problem with you Brits is, I'll tell you what the problem with you Brits is. I spent the summer in England. You have the worst food.
Yep, that's no question. I mean, we have a lot of good English specialties, but we don't have a very diverse set of food. We have signature dishes, pastries, what have you, but no variety really. We have our own stuff, but we're not good at other people's stuff.
That's a great point. And that's the problem though. When I was in England for a summer, I was at Oxford University on some study abroad program. All universities do. And the best thing about dinner was the dessert. And I'm like, you know what? I started eating dessert first. I'm like, what's the point? And I mean, other than that, the Brits, great people, great people. I mean,
yeah, you can't crap too hard on the fish and chips, the sausage rolls, the biscuits, the Yorkshire puddings, which Yorkshire, that's where my grandparents are from. So, in a way, I'm sure we helped coin and popularize that dish.
Well, I would encourage anyone to go to England. It's a beautiful country.
Absolutely, but we shouldn't piss off the Irish by talking about England on St. Paddy's Day.
Well, I'll tell you something with the Irish. I love the Irish, but the problem with you Irish, you just drink too much. You're walking around with fatty liver, all of you, and you don't take care of yourselves. Stop with the beer and relax. And as far as England goes, I was in a real nice restaurant when I was a student there, and I ordered like the grilled chicken, and the server says, "Do you want it medium or well done or rare?" And I said, "I'm gonna friggin' die in this restaurant."
If
It's chicken.
if you're serving a rare chicken, that means it squeaks in your mouth when you chew it.
It's like, what, salmonella poisoning? Give me a break. I said, forget this. I love the country. This food, I can't take it. I flew back to New Jersey. I had spaghetti and meatballs. I was better.
And you've been doing nothing but praising or having your heart broken about these Scarlet Knights ever since.
That's right. And my doctor tells me, stop with the carbs. You're going to get diabetes. I tell him, shove it. So, yeah, I mean, but let me tell you about the Scarlet Knights. I love Rutgers. I love the players. I loved interviewing DT Sheffield. And DT, if you're watching, we're rooting for you this year. You are going to be TD Sheffield and be a star. And I see you playing on Sundays. Ethan, we'd love to have you on the show. You know, we're looking forward to you developing and becoming into a star quarterback. And Coach Greg Schiano, what can I say? He is a great man, a great coach, and really just the best coach in the history of Rutgers. And what he's accomplished in his lifetime is so admirable. And we have nothing but praise for you, Coach.
Yeah. So going back to that whole, scheme versus personnel conversation we were having, what do you think about 2006 with Schiano? Do you think he was responsible for the exceeding projections, or do you believe that the players deserve more credit? Because to me, it was a lot more coaching.
I think that Coach Schiano deserves the overwhelming majority of the credit. And that is the reason is this. You know you have a great coach when they take average players and they make them and they develop them so that they can compete with elite talent. And that's exactly what he did in 2006. That's the exception to coaching. I'm not as high on coaches who have the best talent in the country who win Super Bowls or win NCAA championships. What I'm high on is the coaches who take average talent and develop it into something that can compete with an Ohio State, can compete with a Florida State at the time. And that's all on Greg Schiano, and that's why he's such a brilliant coach. But what I like about Coach Schiano is this. I sense that he is a very, very good man. And I will say that when you go into a Division I football program, I know everyone's goal is to be in the NFL, but the goal should also be to learn lessons that will serve you in life to become a better person and a more successful person professionally and personally. I think Schiano has the character and does that with his players, and I have nothing but respect for him.
Absolutely. And I mean, DT said last week that Schiano was a big part in his recruiting process because he basically said that he's a no-nonsense type of coach and that he sold the program to DT to develop him. And with the NFL wide receiver coach and NFL experienced wide receiver coaches, that we have the talent outside to get him onto the team. So when you translate that back to Schiano, I mean, he's very good at recruiting these guys too, selling them based off of his character.
Yeah, you make a great point. And I'll tell you this. One thing I love about Coach Schiano that is rare among human beings. I'm from New Jersey. I know how people are here. Schiano is blunt, honest, to the point, and he's tough, and he demands the best from you. But he's also empathetic and compassionate and caring. He combines those qualities with toughness. And when you combine toughness with empathy and compassion, that's the ingredient to develop not only a great football player, but a great person. And the fact that he's able to do that is why he's one of the best coaches out there. And, Coach, we hope you come on the show sometime because we really like to take 15 minutes, talk to you about what you think about 2025, about your journey as the Rutgers head coach, because, this is a place where, you've got two people who admire you, who want to bring Rutgers to the top of the college football world.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I love about Northeastern folk, too, is we're confrontational. We have something to say. We say it and we hash things out.
Absolutely. And you know what? It takes a mature person to not only be direct with people, but to also accept criticism and respectfully disagree and still be friends.
I've had that's experience with other folk who can't do that.
Absolutely. It's very sad that some people can't do that. And on St. Patrick's Day, this is the perfect day for people to start looking beyond their differences and seeing what unites them, because you know what? life is better when we can respectfully disagree and have fun and live the short time on this earth that we can. But I don't want to get too philosophical.
Preach.
I don't want to be a preacher because I look, admittedly, I am a minister, but I got I became a minister for 1995 online during COVID for the Universal Life Church. So, I can marry you, I can divorce you. I'm a lawyer, I can divorce you. I'm a minister, I can marry you, but that's neither here nor there. Anything else, Gabe, before we end this up and wish everyone a happy St. Patrick's Day?
Well, yeah, preach it. That's right.
That's right. I'll preach it. I'm going to tell you why I'm going to preach it, because I know what I'm talking about, and it's about time people start listening. This country is going to shit, and it's about time we listen to common sense. But anyway, I digress.
Yes. So I'm very happy with how our pro day went. I think we have a lot of guys that kind of put this program on to the rest of the scouts, the rest of the world. And I'm very happy with the direction our team is headed. I'll respectfully decline your invite to marry me and divorce me. But when it comes to the rest of the Scarlet Knights, I believe that they can, just like marriage, stay together through the rest of this year. And hopefully next year we'll see something special.
Well, you can decline my invite, but hey, everybody makes bad choices. But I got to tell you, I'm excited about the future of Rutgers football, and I can't wait for 2025 to go to some of those games in Piscataway. What I'm even more excited about is this show, because as you guys know, only a couple months ago, we got one of the best co-hosts out there in Gabriel Pickup, who is so knowledgeable about football and such a nice guy that he brings this show to a different level than it otherwise would have been. So I want to thank you, Gabe, for everything you do every week. And, hey, I'm looking forward to a great journey going forward. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun bringing attention to Rutgers football and seeing Rutgers become one of the best teams in the country.
And on top of being knowledgeable in football and being nice, my mom says that any lady would be lucky to have me in their life. Just saying.
That is true. And for all the females watching, absolutely true. However, I'd like you to also consider me too. But we digress. Hey! I'm just saying, this competition, it's capitalism. That's fair. I want to wish everyone a happy St. Patrick's Day. And what I really want to say to everyone is be happy, do things that make you happy. Don't get so stressed about life and politics. Have fun. You're on the earth for a short time. So just enjoy every moment. Enjoy the little things like this show. And, keep dreaming.
Yep. Keep dreaming. Follow all the socials. And we'll see you guys next week.
See you guys next week. Thanks so much.